speech in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Mr. Speaker, ladies and gentlemen, the information that we get and the decisions that we make are only as good as the data that is derived from. This debate is very simple. It is a debate about comparatives and trade-offs between more data and faster data, or quantity and speed, versus less data and slower iteration with the benefit of quality through delay. I have a few features of setup before I move on to my argumentation. The first is, this is a retroactive debate wherein premium versions of Asana and OpenAI's GPT, or Generative Pre-training Transformer, had access to real-time data in the past, and it led to things including but not limited to A, the perpetuation of hate speech and dangerous ideologies that went viral, such as certain pro-Nazism and anti-Semitic stances, because the internet, through groupthink and consensus ideologies, thought it was funny and used these loopholes to be able to make memes and other content. B, inaccurate decisions being made professionally by certain corporations who use these data to be able to make important business decisions. C, students such as ourselves who also use these particular data in the academic life in order to make things faster and more efficient for things like theses, dissertations, term papers. And D, it led to copyright infringements from people, particularly artists, against DALL-E and other generative image functions that actually stole their data because these individuals did not consent to their data being used in their body of knowledge. The common denominator among everything I mentioned is the importance and call to action as to why we need certain fetters or levers of control to serve as a check and balance to be able to vet and fact check this particular information. We think that in status quo, OpenAI and Google Bard actually had to revisit the parameters and put a delay on the information in order to screen against things like fake news and historical revisionism that certain opposition parties and coalition groups were using as propaganda, ladies and gentlemen, to forward their ideologies. We think that the fact that they had to revisit all of this goes to show that retroactively, we could have prevented these things had we had a delay and prevented real-time access to this information to prevent their harms. Our counterfactual is very clear. We want a delay in information in order to verify, fact-check these particular information by the companies OpenAI and Google, of course in partnership with technocrats and specialists and other credible institutions in society, just like what we have in status quo, to prevent misinformation and screen the data. Now, I have a few points of substantive that also serve as possible preemption against the other side. They might tell us that not having the full and complete picture infringes on the freedom of speech and expression, and in order to be able to uphold that, we need all of the data in its entirety. My response to that is that this is not absolute, and we think that we're completely fine preventing access to certain things if these things may be misconstrued and used by malevolent state and individual actors to forward harmful ideologies, or lead to things like infighting within particular communities, or just blate out fake news, just like what we saw during the pandemic or the aftermath of that, where a lot of these particular things were swayed towards a particular side. We need a vetting process and mechanism to be able to screen those things. The second is that they might tell us the heart of innovation lies in more data to be able to have more iteration, because we'll be able to screen these things anyway if we're able to run it. Ladies and gentlemen, at best, that is an illusion of effectiveness. Because we think it's a waste of resources, it's a waste of people's time, waste of money, and waste of effort if you actually have to sift through all of the shit to be able to find the gold. Which is why we rather support being able to have this time delay to be able to filter all that crap, which might be erroneous and it might be malevolently used. Now, what is my argument, right? My argument is very simple. why better decisions are made if we do not have access to real-time data, and how through that you actually achieve better discourse and better innovation, a direct response against some of the preemption I gave you in my pre-oration. Why is that as such? The first is, we need to understand the nature of how these particular information are crafted in these large language models. These information are basically a huge ass data set of which certain inferences, assumptions, and analyses are being made. That is to say that the decisions that you make coming from the information that you get is only as good from the data that you get in. Garbage in equals garbage out, Mr. Speaker, and we think the point in which you have an overabundance of real-time information amidst the dynamic reality of the human world changing is precisely the point in which we don't want individuals and corporations to rush into particular decisions. That is to say that when financial institutions use these data to decide whether or not they're going to buy or sell a stock, whether or not they're going to invest or not invest in a company, should not be done willy-nilly. The same with a student, for instance, who is going to cite a particular source that they got from that pool of knowledge. We don't want them using it willy-nilly just because they see that on the data. That is why we support this particular delay, no matter how long that would take. It might be shorter in some instances wherein it's easy to fact-check information. It might be longer in other instances where these things are particularly contentious. And we think that that delay in and of itself leads to better discourse. Why? Because multiple people are involved in vetting that information, and even if it takes long, it goes to show that so much thought was placed into arbitrating what data will we use, will we allow it or not allow it. And we think that true decision making and the heart of innovation can only happen when you have the discourse I mentioned, and where ultimately people are actually in a position to feel safe and feel confident with the things that they do. So for all of these reasons, we think that it's not something we're willing to take if you have an overabundance of things, even though it's faster, and we are very proud to open this debate from side proposition. Hear, hear, and thank you.